Hello, it is time for all of the Street Fighters, and I feel like this is ramping up now. Every episode is really exciting to me, and doubly so this episode because we're looking at Street Fighter 3 New Generation. Now, Street Fighter 3 is really exciting and it's really interesting to talk about. It's a direct sequel to Street Fighter 2, which means that it's the first new numbered entry in the Street Fighter series since Street Fighter 2 The World Warrior. So think how many games we've looked at since then. We haven't even looked at all of them. It took years and years for them to finally release a Street Fighter 3. I think Street Fighter 2 was probably so popular that Capcom were terrified of releasing a third entry and just tried to stretch out Street Fighter 2 for as long as possible. You know, they tried Street Fighter Alpha before they tried Street Fighter 3. I think the weight of expectation of a new numbered Street Fighter was massive, and I don't know as if they made good on the third entry. I love it. A lot of people love it, to be fair. It's a really popular entry, but it's also very divisive. We'll talk more about that later. It's also an entry that a lot of people didn't play. It didn't come to many consoles, unlike Street Fighter 2, and it came to consoles like the Dreamcast, which not as many people owned as the Super Nintendo. And Street Fighter 2 was on everything, so that's by the by. But anyway, let me stop waffling. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start talking about Street Fighter 3. So let's talk about the characters. We always start talking about the characters because every game, most games have a different roster. Never is that more true than Street Fighter 3. Street Fighter 3 threw away almost every single character from the Street Fighter 2, the Street Fighter Alphas, the Street Fighter EX plus Alphas. It got rid of everything. And the only returning characters from the old games are Ryu and Ken. Every other new character in the game is brand new, which was so brave, and it must have been terrifying. Just Ryu and Ken. Every other character, I mean, there's 10 playable characters in it, so that's 8 brand new characters and Ryu and Ken. So let's go through the list. As I say, we've got Ryu, we've got Ken. They're as we know them. Not much has changed. We've then got Alex, who was kind of sold as the new lead character of the game. He was on all the posters, he was on the box art. They really tried to sell this game, not as Ryu's game, but as Alex's game. He kind of looks like Guile, actually, but he doesn't play like Guile. He's like a wrestler, and he's got a lot of rush moves. So he'll rush across the screen. He's not a wrestler like Zangief. He's fast, but he does a lot of grapples. He's very interesting to play, but I don't know whether it was absolutely successful, him fronting the game. He's appeared in later games, but he certainly hasn't had the staying power of someone like Ryu. We've got Dudley, who's the second ever Brit to feature in Street Fighter. He's a British boxer, which makes you think that he's probably like Balrog, but he doesn't play like Balrog. Again, he's much quicker than Balrog, and he's super cool. He's ace. His London stage that he fights on is brilliant. I love Dudley, not just because of his nationality. We've then got Ibuki, who is a ninja from Kyoto. She throws little daggers. There's definitely a proper term for those tiny little daggers that I don't know. But yeah, she's quick, she's agile, she jumps around the screen. Really cool. We've then got Elena, who is an African princess, and she's got this really cool fighting style. Elena is like the prime example of how cool the visuals in Street Fighter 3 are. Her animation is just silky smooth. The way she kind of dances around the screen and does handstands and flips. Love Elena, she's amazing. Then we've got Necro, who is described as a Russian experiment. He's this kind of gangly blue, he kind of looks like an alien. And again, looking at him, you think, oh, he's maybe like Dalsim, like because of his gangly limbs and he's a bit stretchy. And there's a lot of these comparisons which kind of fool you, but he doesn't really play like Dalsim. He plays very, very strange. Talking of strange, we've got Oro, who's this old guy. He's like an old master who I think lives in a cave. I'm not sure. But the interesting thing about Oro's character is that he fights with one arm tied behind his back. And the lore says that's because that's to stop him from accidentally killing his opponents because he's so strong and so skilled. Again, a really weird character. His stage is a little cave, and when he wins, he kind of flies up to the top of the screen and then hangs in a little bag from the top of the screen. I've never really understood why he does that. We've then got Sean, who is a bit more of a regular Street Fighter guy. He's very similar to Ryu, very similar to Ken. In the story, he was trained by Ken, and the game is part of his training. And then finally, we've got Yun, and in later games, he'll split off into two characters, which is interesting, and we'll leave that until the next game to talk in depth. But he's a Street Fighter from Hong Kong. And his main move that he's kind of famous for is the dive kick, where he jumps into the air and he dives down into the ground with his leg down. And the dive kick became such a thing and so popular that a video game came out probably, 3 years ago, by Iron Galaxy, called Dive Kick, where it's a fighting game that's solely revolved around doing dive kicks. So that's Yun's influence on the fighting genre, which I think's pretty interesting. And then the boss, which you can't play in the game, he's called Gil. There's no Bison here, no Akuma. Gil's a brand new boss. He's this big red and blue guy with long flowing hair and not many clothes on. Not a lot to say about him. So that's the characters. Tons to talk about there. Hopefully in the video you'll see a lot of the new characters. You can see some gameplay of them and stuff. But yeah, only 10 characters in the game. But because 8 of them are new, there's a lot to take in as a new player. We were all new players when this game came out. So before I talk gameplay stuff, I just wanted to talk about some of the visual things and the technology behind the game. So this is the first Street Fighter game to run on Capcom's CPS3 hardware. We talked about the CPS2 hardware back when Super Street Fighter 2 came out, and how that allowed them to kind of expand the graphics slightly. CPS3 is a CD-ROM based system, arcade, boards, and I'm sure you can see from the footage, it's just a stunning game. I absolutely love the look of Street Fighter 3. For me, it's my favourite looking Street Fighter game. Just the animation's so silky smooth. The stages are so detailed. It just looks like a cartoon. I absolutely love the look of it. If I could create a dream Street Fighter game, taking the visuals from one game, the gameplay from another game, the character roster from another game, Street Fighter 3 is the game I would steal the visuals from. I could look at this any day of the week. I wish all the games looked like this. I was a bit sad when the series went 3D because I just dreamed that it would look like Street Fighter 3, but higher resolution forever. So anyway, back to the gameplay systems, because as usual, Street Fighter 3 brought with it new gameplay systems, and some quite important ones, and some quite controversial ones as well. Well, not controversial, but ones that didn't stick with the series. So what I'm talking about is the parry system, and this is the biggest change in Street Fighter 3, and this was an attempt to change how the game plays, and change the meta around the competitive scene, and how people play the game. I guess, let me explain what it is. So the parry system, and you'll see this in some of the video, I'm sure, but not as much as I'd like, because I really, as most normal humans do, I really struggle to use the parry system. So what it is when your opponent goes to attack you, whether with a basic move or a special move, anything, at the split second they attack, you can tap the stick forward, so towards them, just tap the stick forward, or tap the stick down if they're doing a low attack. And if you time it absolutely perfect, if you get the frame absolutely right, you'll parry the move. Your character will flash blue, and that's the cue that's the clue that it's happened. Your character will flash blue. You'll block the attack, and the opponent will freeze for a split second, and it allows you to attack in its place. So I will try, when I edit this video together, I will try and include in this point some footage of parries happening. But as I say, I've never ever successfully been able to be good enough at parries just to do it every time. There's a fireball coming at me, parry it. I spend the game trying to learn and trying to achieve the parries, but it just makes me run into my opponent as I'm tapping forward, and I never get the frames right. It's a split second that you've got to do it, and when you see the pros playing Street Fighter 3, it's so impressive, and it's really cool to see. There's a very, very, very famous clip of from EVO, which is the big fighting game tournament that happens every year. And you know what I'm talking about already if you've seen this clip. It's probably the greatest competitive gaming moment of all history. So this is Daigo fighting Justin Wong, and Daigo and Justin Wong were some of the best Street Fighter 3 players. I mean, I don't know if they're still involved in Street Fighter tournaments. I don't follow the competitive scene, but anyway, they were in. I believe it was the finals, and it was Justin Wong was playing Chun-Li, Daigo's playing Ken, and the match is down to the wire, and Chun-Li is just destroying Ken, and Ken's left with, well, Daigo playing Ken is left with a tiny slither of health, like absolutely minuscule, and Chun-Li's got a good amount of her bar left, and I mean it looks like it's all over, and then Chun-Li hits her super art, which we'll talk about in a minute. It's basically a super combo, and her super art is just a flurry of kicks, just like a huge combo that she does. It's I don't know how many hits it is, but it's like 30 or 40 hits, and Daigo playing Ken just parries every single hit in the combo. It's just unreal, the timing that he must have to know that combo and know when he has to hit the stick. Like, they're all individual parries that he's doing. As I describe, I can't parry one fireball successfully. Whenever I parry, it's kind of luck. Go watch this clip. After me describing how tough the parry system is, go watch this clip. Just search Daigo Evo Street Fighter 3 and you'll find the clip. It's insane. The crowd go absolutely crazy, and it's for me it's the most impressive competitive gaming clip I've ever seen. It's super cool. So that kind of describes how exciting it is to watch great Street Fighter players play Street Fighter 3, and this comes back to why the game's so divisive. It feels like Street Fighter 3 was created with the hardcore in mind, and it's got these systems and these mechanics to make the competitive scene maybe more interesting or more difficult. I don't know, but there's a lot to learn and there's a lot to master. And if you're a hardcore Street Fighter player, if you're a pro player, Street Fighter 3 has got so much depth, and it's got all that good stuff. But if you're quite a casual player and you don't have the reaction times you maybe did when you were 16, it's a little bit frustrating that these things are so difficult to pull off. Like, I love playing Street Fighter 3, but if I ever play again, you know, in the arcades or online on the later releases that had online play, it's just kind of not worth playing because I can't do it. You know, I've played this in the arcades before against people who clearly are just incredible players, and it's just kind of frustrating because I want to play the game because I love it, and I can't. So that's one of the things they fixed in Street Fighter 4 and going forward. They leveled the playing field, and that's the later game strengths really, and I guess it's Street Fighter 3's weakness. So anyway, the other things that they added to Street Fighter 3, because they did add some other things. They added in dashes, so you can double tap forward or double tap back, and your character will dash forward or dash back. And again, that kind of comes into the parry system again, in that they're trying to make the game more aggressive, and you can dash forward and you can dash back and you can parry. And I think they wanted people just like dodging and blocking less and just getting in and fighting more. And then there's also high jumps, so similar to the Marvel games and the X-Men games, you can do a high jump by tapping the stick down and then up. And then the super combo has changed name, it's now called Super Arts, and when you choose your character you'll have a choice of 3, so 3 different super arts you can choose. They're all slightly different moves, and then each super art has a different amount of meter that can be filled. So your meter needs to be full to pull off the super art, and but each one will allow a different amount of the meter to be filled. And the nice thing about the super arts is that when you choose your super art on the character select screen, it obviously tells you how to pull off that super art. So it's, although there's more in that, you know, there's triple the amount. When you're on the character select screen, it'll be like down forward punch, so you know that's how you do it. There's no reading up on guides, and I think that's nice. So yeah, Street Fighter 3. Sorry, I've probably just been talking at 100 miles an hour because there's a lot to talk about in this. It's not as important. I was going to say it's as important an entry as Street Fighter 2, but that's clearly not true. I do find that Street Fighter 3 is probably one of the lesser remembered games because, as I said at the beginning of the video, the console ports were much slimmer. Like, it released on the Dreamcast, and you know the Dreamcast was a current console for about 2 years, and not enough people bought it. And then the later games, there were 3 Street Fighter 3s released, and some of the late ones came out on the PS2, but not in the UK. It never reached Europe, only came out in North America and Japan, and it released on the Xbox, I think everywhere. But again, it's not like the Xbox. The Xbox wasn't the PS2, it wasn't the Super Nintendo, it wasn't the Mega Drive, you know. And then they eventually released on the Xbox 360 and the PS3 in like an HD online collection, which is actually completely awesome. It's a great collection. But again, I mean, that came out, like probably almost 10 years after Street Fighter 3 came out, so it's not like it was a current release. So I think a lot of people miss Street Fighter 3, and that coupled with the fact that it's got all these weird characters in it. You know, they're not just weird because they're new characters, they're weird because, I don't know, they just look weird. There's no Chun-Li, and there's no Dalsim, and there's no Sagat, and there's no Vega, and instead you've got this blue alien-looking guy with long limbs, and you've got this old man with one arm, and I don't know. I don't think it registered with a lot of people, but a lot of the fans love it. I love it. I think it's worth finding and playing. Maybe the third version, like with Street Fighter 2, you're probably going to play Super Street Fighter 2. With Street Fighter 3, you're probably going to play Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, which is the third one, but we'll get to that. This is about Street Fighter 3 New Generation, which is the first one. I think it's awesome. So thank you again for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed looking at Street Fighter 3. I think it's really cool and really interesting. And I hope you will join me next time when we're looking at more of the Street Fighters. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.